This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Buying a car shouldn't eat up your week. That's why Carvana made it convenient. Car buying that fits around your life, not the other way around. You can get pre-qualified for an auto loan in just a couple of minutes and browse thousands of quality car options, all within your terms, all online, all on your schedule. Turn car buying into a few clicks and not a full week's endeavor. Finance and buy your car at your convenience on Carvana. Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
At Chipotle, we also have a playlist. Guacamole as it's being hand mashed. The sizzle of adobo chicken on the grill. The chopping of onions and cilantro. We call our playlist Real. Order now. Chipotle. For real.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
It's no surprise that Hollywood likes to toot its own horn in the quest for Oscar attention. But can a marathon-length film filled with award-winning actors, written and directed by an Oscar winner, and loaded with more bodily fluids than a medical instructional video find Oscar glory? Or will it fall victim to its own Hollywood hubris? Find out as we attempt to prove that Babylon is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Hello to all of our listeners in Sussex Inlet, in New South Wales, Australia, and around the world. How are you guys doing? You know, I feel bad for movies that were released during the pandemic because, as nature would be, there are a few ways that people try to determine whether a film is a hit or a miss. Award season, obviously, is an indicator that a film did well. Critic scores, well, critics can go themselves. Box office. Box office has always been, whether rightly or wrongly, one of those indicators that a film does well. Pandemic changed all of that, and even today's movie viewing habits have changed that as well. So just because a movie is a box office bomb doesn't mean that the film is a bomb unto itself. But we're going to have to figure out if this one is a Hollywood bomb, because we're talking about 2022's Babylon. And here to join me, my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am recovering.
I was going to say, how are you after the 3-hour Hollywood marathon?
Yeah, it's not how are you doing, it's how are you doing?
It's kind of like that Netflix, are you still watching this?
Right.
And that popped up, somewhere around the hour 50 mark. It's like, are you still there?
Are you sure you're actually still watching this? But no, we sat through an over 3-hour film. I feel, because I know I've talked about it on this podcast before, I feel like I need to apologize to the Batman for being long. I feel like I need to apologize to Quentin Tarantino for complaining about how long Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is. Because Babylon, whew.
Okay, can we talk about that though? Because I know I can't talk about it yet, but I kind of feel like it was like 4 different movies. We were taken through, I would say, if not more, but I can think of at least 4 different storylines or interconnected tales. It was almost kind of like a review of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it was, It was at one point you're going through the hours in the day. It starts at 10 a.m. And then I remember saying to you as a joke, I'm like, this is going to be the longest day ever, thinking that it was just that. It was all about one day. But they bring you through everything that happens in one day. And then they kind of skip and they take you through years at a time.
Yeah.
And then 20 years from that point. And it's cool how they did it.
I mean, also, just for the record, it took them about 32 minutes just to get to the title card in the film.
Well, that was cool too. I'm like, and all of the parts that I remember from the trailer were previous to the title screen.
Yeah. Like they were smart in that the trailer didn't actually give this film away. But I mean, this is also part of the Hollywood tradition of making movies about Hollywood. I mean, you take a look at films like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You take a look at films like The Player, The Artist. There's a litany of movies that are about movie making, and they're usually kind of Oscar baity kind of films. But we're going to determine if Babylon not just falls into that category, but if it actually succeeded. But before we get into this 3-hour-long film, and I promise you, dear listeners, we are not going to talk about this film for 3 hours. We're going to be a little bit more concise than that. And since you already heard the theme music, then technically speaking, we've already shown you our title card, so we're okay there. But we are going to take Babylon and trailerize it.
Nothing good ever comes from letting idiots speak. Now, Hollywood is moving away from silent films and letting all the idiots be heard. That is, after everyone has sobered the F up. From the mind of the writer-director of the almost Best Picture winner La La Land, comes another tale of your dreams not being worth a hill of beans. Enter Babylon, a look at Hollywood in the 1920s, filled with more jazz than jizz, but it's a close call on just how much of each is there. Follow the tales of a once great actor watching technology pass him by, an up-and-coming actress whose biggest obstacle is herself, an outsider looking to work in the pictures, and many more stories about people you probably shouldn't get too attached to. It's a film that is less a cautionary tale about the excesses of Hollywood and more about the dangers of giving someone an endless runtime. Powder your nose and cushion your asses for the 3-hour-long Babylon. Rated R, for runtime not conducive to the large soda.
Yeah, I feel bad for anyone who went to see this in the theaters and got the large soda, because you know that's going to hit at about the hour-and-a-half mark.
I was going to say, like, at least we watched it from the comfort of our home.
We could pause that ish.
Yeah.
Which we had to, because there were bathroom breaks needed a couple of times during this movie. But let's get into who is in this film. The movie stars Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Diego Calva, Gene Smart, Hova Nadepo, Lee Jun Lee, Lucas Haas, Catherine Waterston, Tobey Maguire, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jeff Garlin, Samara Weaving, Olivia Hamilton, Eric Roberts, and Rory Scovel. However, there is an almost starring in this movie. The role of Ellie Leroy, as played by Margot Robbie, was originally supposed to be basically the story of Emma Bowe, who was an actress from the silent film years. And Emma Stone was actually originally cast to be in that role, but then she had scheduling conflicts come up. She couldn't do it. Margot Robbie came in to take over the role, and they kind of changed it a bit, so it was a bit more fictional, but there is a lot of the Emma Bowe story still in the writing of Ellie Leroy. The movie was written and directed by Damien Chazelle. This after almost winning Film of the Year for La La Land, and also doing very well with Whiplash before that. The film had a budget of $80 million. Domestically, it only made $15.6 million. Worldwide, only $65 million. But I want to put a big asterisk on this. You have to remember, this was released during 2022. So this is still when theaters are just starting to ramp back up. We're trying to get a box office thing going. And it didn't always work. You had to have a massive film for it to actually explode and bring in big box office numbers, because people still weren't necessarily always going to the theaters at that point. When it was released on the December 23rd, 2022 weekend, yeah, this was a Christmas release. it debuted at number 4 with only $3.6 million. The highest grossing debut that weekend was Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which debuted at number 2 with $12.4 million. Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody debuted at number 3 with $4.7 million. The number 1 film that weekend was the second week of Avatar: The Way of Water with $63.3 million in its second week. Keep in mind that Avatar at that point had already made $261 million. So Avatar: The Way of Water was making money. Other films, not necessarily so much. I normally like to try and get into all of the accolades for a film, but there's a lot for this one. Just to put it out there, this film garnered 158 nominations across various awards ceremonies, winning 45 of them. I would love to sit here and tell you about all of them, but then we would actually hit that 3-hour mark. So I'm just going to give you the main ones. At the 2023 Oscars, it was nominated for Best Achievement in Production Design, but lost to All Quiet on the Western Front. Justin Hurwitz was nominated for Best Score, but lost to All Quiet on the Western Front. And Mary Zafres was nominated for Best Costume Design, but lost to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. At the 2023 Critics' Choice Awards, the film was nominated for Best Costume Design, but lost to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Margot Robbie was nominated for Best Actress, but lost to Cate Blanchett for Tar. It was nominated for Best Hair and Makeup, but lost to Elvis. It was nominated for Best Score, lost to Tar. Damien Chazelle was nominated for Best Director, but lost to Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Linus Sandgren was nominated for Best Cinematography, but lost to Top Gun: Maverick. Tom Cross was nominated for Best Editing, but lost to Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was nominated for Best Picture, but lost to Everything Everywhere All at Once, but did win for Best Production Design. And finally, at the 2023 Golden Globes, it was nominated for Best Picture, Musical or Comedy, but lost to The Banshees of Inisherin. Brad Pitt was nominated for Best Male Supporting Actor in any film, but lost to Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Justin Hurwitz won for Best Score. Diego Calva was nominated for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy, but lost to Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin. And Margot Robbie was nominated for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy, but lost to Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But the reason why we are here, and not just because we talked about Red Hot Chili Peppers over on There Can Only Be One just yesterday, so if you want to hear us talk about Flea a little bit more, you can go listen to that show. But the critics. Over at Rotten Tomatoes, this film has a tomatometer of 57%. So it's close to a borderline qualify, but the tomato is green, so the movie could be seen. The popcorn meter actually sits lower at 52%. Over at Letterboxd, it has a 3.8 stars out of 5 rating for a 76% score. At IMDb, it sits at 7.1 stars out of 10 for a 71% score. Over at Metacritic, it has a Metascore of 61, and at the movie database sits at 74%, giving this film an aggravated aggregate of a college pass 65%. But because we use Rotten Tomatoes, the tomatometer, as kind of our gauge for the movies that we talk about, here we are talking about a film with a 65% aggravated aggregate. So before we even get into this, you've heard all of the nominations. Well, not all of them, because there's a lot of them. Should we even be talking about this film? Like, is 65% spot on? Is it within that 52% popcorn meter to 74% the movie database range? Or is it outside? Is it above or below? Your thoughts on this film on a numerical scale?
I think the best way I can answer that is I understand where the critics are coming from, and I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
I think in the 60s, I would dare say, I would even put this movie like low 70s.
That's basically like IMDb and Letterboxd at that point.
I think so. I really enjoyed it. I feel it was a bit long, But again, for what it was, I mean, I'm sure there's a few parts that could have been tightened up, but it was a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this wasn't just a movie. This was a cinematic journey. This was an adventure through time and through Hollywood's history. It was almost like a beautiful telling of the progression of cinema.
You are calling a film a beautiful telling. A film that includes elephant poop.
Okay, not that scene.
People urinating on other people.
Not that scene either.
People vomiting on other people.
Not that scene. Okay, so you're focusing on maybe the parts the critics didn't enjoy.
Most of that's in the first half hour.
Yeah. However, you can't deny that this was a beautiful telling of Hollywood's cinematic history, of its progression from silent films where they would, film the artwork that told the story in between the scenes. I'm thinking Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, I mean,
silent era.
But even the movie Chaplin, I absolutely loved the movie Chaplin. And I mean, I can't really say anything about the excess of bodily fluids in this film because, I mean, I came on the show and defended Orgasmo. So my movie choices and my cinematic tastes are probably already in question to begin with. But I will have questions for you about this film once we get through the breakdown.
I have a big question for the end that I hope I don't forget.
Okay. Well, don't worry. I got questions lined up, so we'll get to that. But first, the breakdown.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable kernels of grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide, visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
This episode is brought to you by Wayfair. Podcasts follow us everywhere. Whether you're cooking in the kitchen, chilling in the living room, or pretending to fold laundry in the bedroom. And with Wayfair, every one of those rooms can tell a story of its own. Their curated collections of furniture styles and prices make Wayfair the trusted destination to turn your home into your happy place. Shop everything home at wayfair.com with free and easy delivery straight to your door.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
We start, of course, with Brad Pitt, who played Jack Conrad. Your thoughts on him?
Fantastic. At one point, they did such an amazing job with his makeup in the beginning. I was like, is that Brad Pitt? I mean, of course, Brad Pitt is Brad Pitt, but in this role, it almost kind of brought me back to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but more like he was the Leo character. You know what I mean? The struggling actor that's really struggling in his personal life, but still puts on the facade.
The once like top billboard actor coming to terms with an industry that's kind of leaving him behind.
Exactly.
I liked him more in this than I did in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I did like him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm not saying he was bad in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm saying I liked him better in this.
I'm not sure if I agree with that, but I very much liked him in this. I just loved, I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I thought he was fantastic.
It's a Tarantino film. Of course you loved it.
Okay, but not only that, but Brad Pitt, I mean, he kicked ass. Him and his dog.
He kicked Bruce Lee's ass in that film.
Yeah, right?
But I mean, here's the thing. The role of Jack Conrad, it's kind of like an amalgam of a couple of different actors from that era. Douglas Fairbanks, Clark Gable, Rudolph Valentino. So you're getting little bits of the lore of some of these legendary silent film actors and eventually into the talkies. But there's something so vulnerable about Jack, right? The fact that his entire world is thrown when the very first person to ever tell him that he had talent kills himself. This breaks him. There's so much of almost like a lost little boy in Jack, right? He needs to know that he's doing a good job. He's basically, he leans on his success and he leans on the adoration of everyone around him in order to justify that he's doing a good job. And when everything starts to turn and people are laughing at him in the movies and the movies aren't doing well and people are like, oh, how are you holding up? Like he is so vulnerable in this film. I think it may actually be, I know I would personally put it in my top 5 Brad Pitt acting roles.
Wow.
I know that's a big statement to say, but yeah.
That's a big statement. That's a bold statement.
Right?
I don't disagree.
Like, he came at this almost as if like someone like George Clooney would come at this with. Like, this feels like the role that could have gone to Clooney and it would have worked just as well. But I think Brad Pitt came in with that debonair attitude. Because, I mean, keep in mind, this is a guy who he loves to party, but the party almost feels like a cover, right? Like he's ignoring all the naysaying voices in his head, right? He's leaning on the people who just want to be around him and tell him he's doing such a good job. That he came at this with such a, and I know Brad Pitt's been acting a while, so bear with me. He came at this with such a maturity in creating a character who is emotionally immature. And it's fascinating to watch. Like, I will be honest, I'm surprised he didn't get more nominations. Like, how was he not looked at for the Oscars? And I get. Everyone was looking at Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm not saying that, or The Whale, right? Brendan Fraser rightfully won that award. I think what held back those nominations is that this isn't just a Brad Pitt film. It's an ensemble. He's not the main actor. Supporting actor, yes, absolutely. But he's not the main actor. But every scene he's in, he owns it for sure.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think if Babylon had come out before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he would have had more accolades for his performance?
I don't think so. Because there were a number of films that came out that were very, for lack of a better term, Oscar ready, right? Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of stole the show at the awards. Yes.
Exactly, but I'm saying a different time.
In a different year, maybe.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, Damien Chazelle had actually pitched this film years ago, but the studios thought it might have been too, not adventurous, but a little too far-reaching for someone who was still breaking in at the time. And they said, like, well, why don't you try this? So that's when, like, Whiplash and La La Land came together. And then it's like, all right, cool. You almost won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Here's a bunch of money. Go make your film. And I wonder, because as I'm watching this film, and of course it's set during the silent film era, and it feels very much like a Tarantino-inspired style of writing with a lot of time jumping, a lot of character story jumping. Tell me this film wouldn't have benefited from silent film style title cards in order to shift the story focus to one of the other actors.
I think that would have been just kind of ironic and clever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, they did have subtitles that brought us through the time and the year.
The year, yes, for sure. And the time during that first opening scene, yeah.
However, what they did really well was the use of newspaper to tell the story. But I mean, that was closer to the end. The end, whoo.
The end doesn't end well for most of them, yeah.
It doesn't end well, but it also kind of got really artsy. That's probably the best way I can describe it. It was clever, the use of the newspapers to tell the story, to kind of tie up the loose ends.
Yeah, to basically tie. It's like one of those movies where it ends and it has like this little montage of like what every character did after the events of the movie.
And since we're talking about it now, there was one newspaper clipping.
Spoilers like a mofo.
That when, he's sitting in the theater, the previous director, producer, sitting in the theater, watching a movie, and just, it's all coming full circle. His entire life story flashing in front of his eyes, all the memories, and it's breaking him in the moment. But one of the newspaper clippings said this was the first or introduction to sound and dialogue in the movies.
Because the movie he's watching at the time is about movie producers dealing with the coming of the talkies. So it's basically he's watching a movie that in essence is the life that he lived.
Well, I get that, but they did it first, right?
No, they did it after because this is in the 50s.
No, but he did it first when he had his career.
He did it first, and then he was watching a movie that was basically like him watching his life story.
My point is that they had talking in the movie while he was working in the movies.
Yes, because he was there at the transition of, yes, absolutely. Yeah. But the first film that we see Jack shoot is a silent film.
Fair, but as his career goes, there is definitely dialogue.
Oh, absolutely. But that's the thing. It's the transition that Jack is not necessarily making properly from silent film actor to a talking film actor.
See, here we go. It's all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Margot Robbie playing Nellie Leroy. Your thoughts on her?
Absolutely brilliant. There's not much more I could say. Holy crap. She has some acting chops.
Oh, of course she does.
Because she can just flick it on like a switch, and she can turn from meek and mild and quiet and unassuming to absolute crazy. And I love it.
But the problem here is this, and this is not a problem with Margot Robbie at all. The problem is we've seen her do this already. It feels like we've already seen, because Nellie's a bit, she's a bit of a crazy wild girl. She is the wild child. But I mean, we've seen Margot Robbie do this with Harley Quinn. We've seen her do it in Terminal. We've seen her, and a little bit too when she was playing the Tanya Harding. We've seen her with these crazy acting chops. And after a while, you almost kind of expect it. I almost wanted to see Margot Robbie play someone outside of that bit of crazy, but then you wouldn't have the character of Nellie, who is completely up on cocaine and in gambling. Like there's a fine line.
But I have to say, I loved that they showed her softer side.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And they showed, I'm not quite sure exactly why this one particular film or this scene was so challenging for her, but that one where they kept going through and got up to like something like 7 or 8 takes.
Oh, I love this scene. But it wasn't her though. It was the technology not being able to meet what she was doing. So first, okay, you missed your mark on the first one. That's okay. That happens, right? And this is her first talking film. So were you? This is me. Maybe you saw it the same way. I was getting straight up Living in Oblivion vibes from that entire scene.
Oh my God, exactly.
Right?
That was exactly it.
Like I all of a sudden I expected everyone to start pushing the camera in with the old lady sitting in the chair and just looking off into the middle third while someone was. If you haven't seen Living in Oblivion, you must go see Living in Oblivion. But that scene is fantastic. But that's more like just everyone who is working in silent film trying to now deal with the talkie when everything was like, you speak too loud, you blow the tubes as far as the microphones go. The camera room is too hot. You can't move the microphones around because everything is set to be where it is. Like people walking in and not respecting like the red filming light. Like there's so much that goes wrong in this one scene. But there's also part of the problem with this film is that there's so many of these little tips of the hat to all these other movies about movies that you feel like you've seen a lot of it before. The long tracking takes. I mean, that's straight out of The Player, right? The Player set that opening scene so well with that one long continuous shot. As far as the scene we were just talking about, that's straight out of Living in Oblivion. There's moments in this movie that I feel that are pulled or at least inspired by Boogie Nights. There's so many films out there about making films that it's hard to be original. And I think with Margot Robbie, I did like her in this, but I feel like we've seen that kind of performance before. I would have been fascinated to watch Emma Stone in this role. But I don't think that's a bad choice if you can't have Emma Stone to go with Margot Robbie. Like, I don't know anyone else who would do that well.
And I don't think it would have played out the same.
Mm-hmm.
I feel she was absolutely perfect for the role, and the role was perfect for her.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Emma Stone could have pulled that off. Zero question whatsoever. And they got the right person to step in when Emma Stone couldn't do it. But I found, obviously this is like the main story. The story of Nellie and Manny. That's kind of like the main story. You know, Jack is also a main story, but there are so many different stories in here that everything kind of collides a little bit.
I love that it took so long in her career and the rise of her career until she met Brad Pitt.
Yes. And it was like an hour and a half before they actually shared a scene together, which is fascinating when you think about it. But I will give her credit too. Like, take the crazy, coked out Nellie scenes aside. There's the scene where she goes to visit her mom in the, in the
institution.
Thank you. I was looking for the word. The sanctuary, not sanctuary. It was a sanitarium or whatever. I can't English today. Sorry, dear listeners. But it's just like she doesn't know what to say and she's trying so hard. And, you know, it's a short scene. But this scene to me was the most powerful Nellie scene in the entire film. And it's so subtle, but it's so good.
It was that, and it was the after in the limo where she's kind of explaining her why.
Yeah.
You know, like really sharing her struggles with Manny.
Well, that's the other thing too. And that scene, and again, spoilers like a mofo, that scene sets up the entire end of the film where she says like she's gonna like just dance off into the night and no one's gonna tell her what to do because she writes her own story. And that's exactly what she did at the end of the film. She danced off into the night and was never seen again. So yeah, kind of called the shot there. And when you go back and you watch it and go, oh, like that was her moment. That was her walk away moment. Diego Calva, who played Manny Torres, your thoughts on him?
I'm sitting here kind of on the fence. At first, I felt he was so even keel during the whole movie that I really didn't think much of him.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, then you get to the last scene and it was just kind of his flashback or his deep introspective, memories of his rise and his fall and his career and mostly his love affair.
Yeah.
With Nellie, it was, again, I didn't particularly like him, but I didn't dislike him.
I like the idea of Manny. you think about it, right? Manny is the dreamer, right? He has this want to just be on a film set because that's where the magic happens. He wants to be like we see in that opening, the opening party scene with him and with Nellie. And he's like, I want to be part of something bigger than myself. And I'm sure there are so many people in the movies who have said that very same thing. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And we can all sit there and look at Manny and go, yeah, we understand you. And he gets the break and working for Jack, and this is his in, and he's going to do everything possible. I don't know if I can see like all of a sudden like becoming like a head of Kinescope like he did. But it's one of those things where you almost have to see him actually achieve his dream and realize that by being in that position turns him into someone he doesn't want to be. Like turning against Lady Faye, not necessarily turning against Sydney, but making him do something that he doesn't want to do and thereby forcing him out of the movies. Like he got what he wanted but all of a sudden he realizes that what he wanted was probably the most dangerous thing for him.
Yeah, even at that, he seemed to kind of just be bumbling through his own life.
Because I don't think he had a plan. I think he was just like one of those. I don't think many people really had a plan in this film. Jack thought he had a plan, right? Obviously, Nellie, in Nellie's mind, she's a star already. And people just need to wake up and realize that she's a star. Manny's the dreamer. And the problem with dreams is that when you get to that point, you may realize that the dream maybe wasn't what you should have gone after all. And that's the thing, like that last scene of him sitting there in the movie theater watching this film that basically feels like it's telling the story of what he's already done, and just seeing him crying in the theater. It's like that scene alone, it's a great moment for Diego Calva as an actor. And it's the culmination for Manny. The only scene I wasn't the biggest fan of Manny in was during like the crazy freak show pit of party that they end up going into with freaking Spider-Man there. And it's not that scene alone. Like that scene also felt like it came right out of Boogie Nights.
That was so weird. It was almost kind of like at that point, it almost turned into more of a Saw movie. I was afraid. I'm like, okay, they're going deeper into this dungeon. Mm-hmm. And then, well, he has to get out of said dungeon. And I'm just like, at some point, just turn and run. Like, do not go further. But why are you following him?
But this is why I say this scene alone feels like it's straight out of Boogie Nights. So let's flash back to Boogie Nights here for a second. There's that scene where Mark and his buddy and the other guy they're sitting there at this dude's house, and he's lighting off firecrackers and they're playing. I can't remember what the song was. It Sister Christian? There's some. Yeah, I think it was Sister Christian they were playing, and you just see this long, slow push into Mark Wahlberg's face. And you see Mark Wahlberg realizing that his entire life has gotten to this moment, and this is his time when he's like, I need to get the out of here, or I'm not going to be I need to stop what I'm doing now. Right? They were at this dude's place ready to rob him and get whatever they had. That was a weird moment for Mark Wahlberg's character in Boogie Nights. This felt like that here, like that critical moment of fight or flight, and Manny just chose flight, and probably so too. Lee Jun Lee, who played Lady Faye, your thoughts on her?
I thought she was absolutely adorable and brave. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about the snake yet?
Oh God, yes, we can. We already said spoilers like a mofo like 3 times already in the show. So let's talk about the snake.
That whole scene was just so freaking weird. Like, when I say that we watched like 4 different movies all in one, this was a turn. This was kind of like, this was where it went Tarantino. And you could almost see this as a scene out of like Kill Bill or something. Like, it was just, it was so obscure. Like, yeah, my dad's going to fight a snake. And when he was too drunk and just passed out, then, well, Nellie's going to fight a snake.
Because she wants to see someone fight a snake, and then the snake bites her in the neck. The venom sets in, and no one can help her until Lady Faye comes in, literally cuts the head off the snake, removes the snake's head from Nellie's neck, and then sucks the poison out, and then washes her mouth out with like, that's got to be some strong alcohol in that flask, and does the same thing to Nellie's neck. I loved every scene Li Junli was in. And the problem is, I was more interested in her story than I was about Manny's. She was a scene stealer. Every moment. Like, think about this, right? If we're going to talk about like late 20s, early 30s Hollywood, here was someone who was kind of like a burlesque performer and, was eventually in a lesbian relationship with Nellie, but that wasn't flying in, the late 20s, early 30s Hollywood, where everything was very traditional values. Every scene she was in, and she seemed to be the conscience for Jack at the end too. Every scene she was in, I wanted more of her in this movie, but there were too many stories to tell. And the thing is, you can't tell more Lady Faye's story because then you pull away from like the main three stories of Manny and Nellie and Jack. And I don't want this movie longer, but I felt that had you had less other stories in it, you could have told a little bit more of Lady Faye's story because I found it fascinating.
Or at least have her as a bigger part in the other stories.
But where do you take away from to put more of her into it?
Unless you have her as the grounding character, kind of the rock that everything else revolves around.
But think about it, right? She is the first stabilizing factor in Nellie's life, right? They have a good relationship. They're in love, but Manny has to tell Lady Faye that she's fired and can't hang around Nellie because of public perception. That's the start of Manny's fall. And also, she's the one that realizes that last conversation with Jack is going to be her last conversation with Jack ever. And just the look back she gives him, like every scene Li Junli is in, her acting is so freaking good.
She also hit him with a car.
No, she didn't hit him with the car. Someone else hit him with the car. She then went out and cut the head off the snake.
Oh, because she walked out beside the car. I thought she was driving it.
She was standing beside another car. That's why she's just like looking at everything going on, going, and then like grabs her knife and saves the day. And
okay, I thought she was driving the car.
No. No, but the problem is when you have a character as fascinating as Lady Faye, you want to give more screen time to her, but at 3 hours plus, you have no more screen time to give.
I honestly thought that Manny fired her, or at least dismissed her, because really he loved Nellie. Like he kind of maybe wanted her out of the picture.
He loved Nellie, but he was being told by the money guys that he had to do something to clean up Nellie's image.
Still.
Yeah.
I think there was deeper motive there.
Deeper motive, possibly, but that's the thing. He comes in a position of power and has to tell Lady Faye to hit the skids. Like that's the beginning of the end for Manny right then and there. He now is doing the things that he wished he didn't have to do. So Lady Faye figures into every single story in this movie, at least of the main three stories, and every scene she's in works so well. Hoven Adepo, and I apologize if I messed up his name. Remember, I'm an idiot in a basement with a microphone, playing Sidney Palmer. This is the trumpeter that eventually got to be in the movies. Your thoughts on him?
I really liked him. I mean, incredibly talented musician, first of all. And it was just nice to have another character to kind of take a break from the madness of the top three. It was just a nice little different storyline. I really liked the scene where he gets his big house.
Yes.
And he's just kind of like almost dancing up the stairs. Like it's You know,
this is his moment. Yeah.
It is the rise. It's the rise that you want to see.
His music got him to that point. And then he didn't allow himself to, be brought down by what Hollywood thought that he should be. Because, after that one scene where he had to put the coal on his face just to match all the other players, he's like, nope, I'm not coming back. He does the film and then he's done. The problem with Sydney, and again, not anything on Hovena Depot, is that of all the main stories in this film, I found his is the most glossed over. It's like you introduced this character and you built him up only to be a turning point for Manny, and that's it. If you're going to add more Lady Faye to this film, I think you need to do it by taking Sydney out of the film. But the problem is his story is so fascinating and it's so critical to tell of silent film era Hollywood and going into the talkies that you need this to be a series. You need this to be more than just a 3-hour film. You need it to be like a 10-episode season. Give Damien Chazelle 10 hours to tell this story, and you can tell all the stories you want.
But I wouldn't recommend binge watching it. Your head might explode at the end.
Quite possibly, yes. But there is such a thing as too much story. And I think if you're going to chop this film down from 3 hours, then you lose Sydney's story, but you also lose one of the good guys in this film and one of the more positive stories to tell. So I don't know if you can lose it, but I think you still need more space to grow that story. Eleanor St. John is played by Jean Smart. This is the Hollywood gossip columnist. Your thoughts on her?
I liken her to Rita Skeeter from Harry Potter. Like,
of course you would.
I thought, she's the storyteller, right?
Yes.
And I think it's pivotal that she was the one that first called out Jack's fall.
Yes.
From fame.
Yeah. She's the voice of reality for Jack. And I think you had just enough of Eleanor in this film to establish her Hollywood cred. You just put her in enough, a little bit here and there. And Jean Smart's great. She's always good. But then you get to that discussion with Jack, that monologue that she gives to Jack. And this is the reason why you cast someone like Jean Smart for that entire section of dialogue. Just that reality check for Jack, and it's delivered with such compassion, but also kind of looking down upon him. Like, she may as well have just started everything with, "Oh, you poor boy." Like, that's the way it should have started, because really that's kind of what Jack is at that point. No one's there to tell him the truth. In comes in Eleanor, who's known him for so long and is actually going to tell him the truth, which is also kind of heralds back to the opening party scene where he's looking at that waitress and then talking to Lady Faye. And it's like, yeah, she just told me the truth, and no one does that. Right. So here is Eleanor giving him the truth, and he can't handle it. It's a fascinating role for her. I'm going to put these two together because they're kind of like the same character. Flea as Bob Levin, who's like the executive assistant to Jeff Garlin as Don Wallach. He is the money guy behind Kinescope, and it was his mansion that the party was at in the beginning of the film. Your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah. I mean, they definitely were the money. They were like, they just had that authoritative look.
Right.
And definitely almost like the visual of money talking.
Yeah.
And especially in the time.
Well, and that's the thing. Like Bob Levine at this point is kind of like for lack of a term, he's the assistant to the regional manager at this point. If Don Wallach is the money guy, But also Flea is the one that's being told to do all the things, right? Dawn doesn't deal with things. But, Bob deals with things because Dawn tells Bob to go deal with things, right?
Did you do a body count? How many bodies they had to take care of?
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know how many bodies were left behind from those parties. But the funny thing is, though, this is a big cast. And there are a bunch of actors in this film, dear listeners, that we're not going to really have a chance to talk about because A, their parts were so small, and B, we don't want to be here for 3 hours. So this is one of those situations where you could have taken the role of Bob and Dawn and rolled them into one.
No, but I think they needed to be a duel. You needed, they kind of play off each other. And, I'm going to say this. Well, I'm going to say this for you.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of had that almost mirroring presence, almost that.
But the thing is, Dawn doesn't feel menacing. Yeah, sure, he can stare at someone like there's no tomorrow. And Jeff
Flea
Carroll's
did,
good at that.
though.
But the thing is, Flea's the guy. Flea's the doer, right? Flea's like Dawn's fixer at that point, right? Flea is the one that's going in and smacking up Fatty Arbuckle there after almost ODing the girl and giving Manny the offer to come work at Kinescope. Like, Bob is the guy. I felt Dawn was extraneous. Like, you could have had Dawn Wallach be an omnipresent presence, but not actually there in person, and just Bob being the guy, the voice of Dawn.
I think it's almost better to see them though, because you've got the money,
mm-hmm.
and what he says goes, and Flea makes sure that it happens.
I'm just glad they didn't play Bob as some kind of simpering fool to Dawn. Bob is infinitely more upfront about getting ish done. Dawn just sits back and just stares. So it worked. I liked Flea in this role. It's maybe not necessarily my favorite Flea role, and he's acted in quite a few things. Many of them we can't talk about, like Baby Driver. We can't talk about Baby Driver, not on this show. But yeah, he's good in this. I like him.
He plays a really good baddie.
He does.
And yet he still seems like such a nice guy.
He's the nicest baddie you're ever going to meet in the movies.
Right? Nice baddie.
Ah, Smart Water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart Water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Blue sky.
Some people think nature is like this, but actually, it's like this. Mother Nature's not all sunshine and rainbows. Nature can be hotter than a sauna and colder than an Arctic skinny dip. That's why Columbia engineers everything we make for anything nature can throw at you. Columbia, engineered for whatever.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Eric Roberts, who played Robert Roy, Nellie's father. Again, a small role, but your thoughts on him. This is the snake fighter.
Yeah, but leading up to, I might have missed something in that, but what was it that he said exactly that made her cry?
So she's in the bathroom at this party and she overhears her dad talking to somebody else outside of the bathroom about her, basically saying that she's, not, she's crazy and she's dressed like a whore and all this kind of stuff. And, we see early on that Nellie's entire raison d'etre for becoming a star in the movies is to basically stick a middle finger up at everyone back home who said that she was ugly or untalented or whatever the case may be, right? So to hear her own father laughing about her to someone else, she's in earshot. He doesn't know it. So that's why she's like, you're going to fight a snake, like, and he's her manager too. And he's basically making these restaurants he's basically trying to make business deals on her fame and popularity and her money, which is why she has no money at the end when she gets into all this gambling debt. But you want someone to come in who's able to play smarmy and sleazy. And I don't know about you, but Eric Roberts played Robert so well. I'm just like, tell me the snake bites him. Tell me the snake just chomps a big chunk out of him. Because you feel Nellie's hatred towards him at that point.
Yeah, I got to admit, when she's flailing around and the snake is like attached to her jugular, I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to end well. This can't be her end.
Right?
Clearly it wasn't.
Clearly it wasn't.
She got to dance off.
A smaller role, but I think one that plays a very important one as well. This is Jack's third wife, Estelle, as played by Catherine Waterston. Most people will remember her from the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them series. This is his third wife, Broadway actress, trying to get him to become a better actor, like very much a stage actor. Your thoughts on her?
Yeah. I mean, my comment is not necessarily on her, but that moment that Jack just breaks after receiving the phone call and it's almost like he found his backbone and he snaps, yes, but a lot of the truths, I think a lot of the, a lifetime of being surrounded by yes followers, and people who, again, would not tell him the truth. And he finally stands up for himself.
See, the thing I find interesting is that, so the very beginning of the film, when he arrives at the party and he's pissing off his wife at the time, played by Olivia Wilde, and, she basically throws him out of the car and says she wants a divorce. Like, that wife is not very helpful. Second wife doesn't even speak English, right? And basically shoots him. Estelle, of all his wives, isn't putting him down, isn't really, she's kind of looking down her nose at filmmaking because she's a Broadway stage actress. That's just that divide, right? But it's not that she's looking down her nose at Jack. And it only takes him, I think that's why this is the first wife he goes back and tries to reconcile with, because he realizes after losing his best friend that maybe she wasn't, putting him down, but she was trying to help lift him up. And she became kind of, I thought this was going to be a good turning point for Jack until the movie started to falter as well. I found that relationship fascinating. I think we could have done without the second wife, even though you need him to get to that point as well. So
all I can think is no doubt his career plummeted because of the amount of alimony he's got to pay. Like, how many times was he married?
There were no kids though. Well, so at least there's that, right? But still, I wish we had seen a little bit more of the Estelle Jack dynamic, because I think it would have made his eventual end just a bit more harsh, because then you would have felt for her as well. Another small role, but played an important part in the early part of Nellie's story, that of Ruth Adler. This is played by Olivia Hamilton. This is Nellie's first director. So this is the one that's directing the bar scene and then directing the college movie scene. Your thoughts on her?
I'm so glad you mentioned her. I was afraid you were going to kind of like dust over, because she is a small part, but damn, is she fantastic. And she didn't say a lot. She didn't have many lines, but she was just almost that, like, calm, in control, like boss lady. And then she really warmed up. Nellie kind of almost broke her and found her, her heart.
But I think the other thing too about Ruth is that here was a director that believed in Nellie's acting, right? Didn't try to change her, didn't try to make her prim and proper, leaned into what made Nellie so infinitely watchable, whether it be in person or on the screen. Like that entire scene where she's directing her to just that one tear, and you see the excitement of that scene, and it's just like, this is fantastic. And then we get like our Living in Oblivion little homage scene where they get to like take 7 of all of this, and just the exasperation of a director trying to direct against technology as opposed to just directing people and scenes.
But when you think, even from the first bar scene, like it looked like a tough industry. People were literally fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So she had to be tough as nails.
Oh, absolutely.
From the start. And yet, as soon as she saw the potential in Nellie and she connected with, again, her talent and her incredible performance, and she wanted to, to foster that. She wanted to see Nellie grow and become a star.
This is a character I wish they had brought back a little later into the film in Manny's quest to try to get Nellie back on top, because this was a person that saw Nellie's talent from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And this could have been a voice of reason to Manny for someone to say, there's a reason why people watched her because of her, right? Not because of some fake accent or prim and proper attitude that's really just a show. Let Nellie be Nellie. I wish we had that scene. And I don't know if there's more to this movie or there was a longer cut or whatever, but she did such a good job, Olivia Hamilton did, that I wanted more of Ruth. I wanted more of some of these side characters. But again, a movie can only be so long, and this movie's long enough as it is.
I loved the scene, though, where Nellie was supposedly trying to be groomed to attend this, high function party.
Even despite all the vomit from that scene?
Well, okay, that part I looked away, but...
Dear listeners, my lovely wife has a vomit reflex. So anytime we're watching a film where there's a ton of vomit, be assured that she is not watching the screen. She's listening to it, but she's not watching the screen.
Okay, I made it through the elephant poop, the other grotesque
elephant poop, urinating on somebody. Yeah.
However, vomit, that's where I draw the line. But you know what, though? Like Nellie's performance, where she kind of almost felt so cornered.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost see that child in her that's being told no and that she'll never amount to anything. And she snaps and she fights back, and I just love it. I thought it was so incredibly smart and strong. Her her final I don't know, food fight.
In a movie that's about people needing people even though they don't realize that they need people, I loved the dynamic between Ruth and Nellie. Was great. 2 more roles to get into, and they both play important roles near the end of the film. Rory Scovel, who plays the Count. This is the guy who's kind of like the on-set fixer, giving people peanuts filled with drugs, as a hangover cure, and then eventually gets the prop money in order to kind of clear off Nellie's gambling debt. Your thoughts on this guy?
You know what? I couldn't get past. I'm like, why is he constantly wearing a cape? Is he literally a count? Like,
no, I think that's just something that he does. Like this is, some people wear hats to get noticed. Some people like to wear outlandish clothing. He wears a cape. He is the Count.
I mean, the scene with Tobey Maguire. I mean, he was. I almost wonder, like, why? Why was he allowing this to happen? Why wasn't he like, okay, we've got to go now? He was almost like he's humoring the situation. He's like, oh yeah, let's go for one more drink. It's how bad could it be?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly trying to play this cool, but keep in mind too, his whole reason for helping Manny out is because he wants a monologue in the next film. We see that too with his stack of headshots, cape included, back at his house. Like this is the count. He wants to be like Jack. He wants to be like Nell. He wants to be a star. So if here's a gangster with a ton of money who's pitching movie ideas to a movie producer, and he's the guy that kind of got them together, he probably sees this as this is my chance to make it big and make a thing, right? And then it just goes south from there. But yeah, I like the character because in movie sets, you see a lot of, I'm not saying you see people just walking around with like Dracula capes all over the place, but you do see characters on set. And apparently there is history of people on these sets basically as fixers and helpers for the actors. Here's a little something to help you with your thing kind of thing. Like a lot of these characters are written based on stories and anecdotes from classic Hollywood stories and tales. And finally, we can't get through this film without talking about Tobey Maguire playing James McKay, the drug dealer / I don't know what the hell kind of party he was running in that little sewer, whatever kind of thing. But your thoughts on Spider-Man taking a very different role?
Okay, so maybe not the kudos to Tobey Maguire, but definite shout out to his makeup artist because he looked like he hadn't slept in about 2 months.
Yeah, no,
it was.
Well, the fact that there were so many people passed out at his house already, and he's there, like, and his teeth are very yellow, and his skin is pale, and we see the baggage. He has like aircraft full luggage under his eyes, under this. Like, he plays it so creepy.
Oh yeah, but he was great.
But there's a problem with this though. Like, it felt like a comedy at this point.
Oh, I wasn't laughing. I was afraid of him. I was like, I kept wondering at what point his bodyguard is just going to shoot them.
Yeah, I mean, the bodyguard is one thing, right? But I mean, I found Tobey Maguire a little bit cartoonish in this role. Maybe it is the makeup, and maybe it is just the complete eye-opening WTF, like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot of everything that's going on in that cave, that it kind of took me out of the film a little bit.
Again, I feel like we watched like 4 different movies, and this was like almost the intermission between.
Yeah.
Like, it was so out of place, yet again, it almost took like a Saw turn. So when you say that, different styles and genres of movies were given a nod, this was definitely the House of 1,000 Corpses, kind of like as they're going deeper and deeper into the.
I know, but it was getting to the point where I expected to see Marcellus Wallace hanging from the rafters and someone saying, "Bring out the gimp."
Yeah, and that's the thing. You never knew what the next level would hold. How many floors were on this?
Yeah, there were multiple levels going into this sewer system, kind of whatever. And the thing is, like, it just got weirder and weirder and weirder the deeper they went in. Like, I'm fine with your underground fight club or whatever. That, okay, sure. And then you go down another level. And there's a crocodile there, or whatever. Then you get to another level, and Abba Dabba Honeymoon is playing on the record player, and it's almost like, what happens with the circus when they're off? Oh, by the way, they have orgies in a dungeon. And then you go down one more layer, and there's some big steroided freak eating rats for money. Like, what?
You forgot about the crocodile.
I know, I mentioned the crocodile.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned the crocodile.
Yeah, the crocodile.
Like,
and then I like that they let him loose.
Like, I will never be able to hear Abba Dabba Honeymoon ever again. Abba Dabba 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 Dabba. Like, no. Because all I'm going to picture is weird freak orgy going on. Maybe not the movie scene you want if you're looking for an Oscar.
Glad the alligator wasn't on that level.
No. Allie the alligator gets his own level. He's his own level of crazy at this point.
Ooh.
Okay, so we've mentioned like the opening half-hour orgy party scene of debauchery. We've talked about the 4 layers of whatever that Tobey Maguire is running. This is obviously a film that's trying to talk about the excesses of Hollywood. But do you think too much attention is paid on those scenes? And do you think this film would have been better received had it dialed back a little bit of the, for lack of a better term, excrement that was thrown out there?
Well, I mean, I could have definitely done without the elephant poop. That was like in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So friends, when you put this movie on, because, okay, let's be honest. If you recap our conversation, this isn't just a fever dream. This actually happened. This was a movie that we actually watched. We can't even make this stuff up. So this series of very unfortunate events, 3 hours, but I would definitely cut it short by 5 minutes at the top, and you could probably trim the end as well. It got real weird.
But I mean, like, I understand that they're trying to tell a story of, that era of Hollywood and the craze that people got up to, and some of the stories of legend and lore. It's kind of like, hearing about everything that Led Zeppelin used to do on the road, right? But I mean, if we're talking about films that, look at aspects of movie making, let's go back to Boogie Nights for a second. This is a film about the porno industry in like the late 70s, transitioning to the early 80s and the advent of digital video. But yet it doesn't sit there and focus on all the sex. You have scenes where they're filming sex scenes, and then you have this long panning shot of like people watching the scene being filmed, but not the scene itself. Boogie Nights, for all of its subject matter, is actually very tasteful in how it's shot. Here, it felt like they were like, all right, we have an elephant. The elephant's going to poop on people, and this guy likes to be peed on, and they're going to have sex, and this guy gets something shoved up his ass, and and there's so much going on, and that's just in like the first 30 minutes. And after that, it's like, here's the title card. Now let's get to the real film. Like, I recognize you need to set the tone of the era and of these characters, but do you think it went too far?
It's a good question. I mean, I think to show the madness, really kind of juxtaposition the story. And there was a lot of heart behind it because there was a why. You're dealing with actors that have either been told that they'll never make it or told that everything that they do is fantastic, and they've never been told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So even just that with those two stories, and then you've got Manny the Dreamer who just wants to work in Hollywood. He wants to work in picture. And, you see his rise. And not only that, but there's that love story as well.
Yeah.
So I think this movie is very much a complete package. It's just too long and maybe tried to be a little bit too crazy.
Yeah. It sacrificed emotion for exploitation, it felt like. And
I disagree with that. I really do. I think, especially I'm thinking the final funeral scene.
Yes.
Kind of pulled it together. And again, the use of the tabloids or the newspaper articles.
There's so many like little musical montages that could have been cut down a little bit. But again, this also comes down to maybe trying to tell too many stories all in the same film.
Yet I wonder if they were trying to fall under the musical category. And that's why they needed that much.
But I mean, this is also Damien Chazelle, right? This is the guy who brought us Whiplash. This is the guy who brought us La La Land. So this feels like an MO for him. But in doing that, do you think he painted himself in a corner to do a film that fell into his, for lack of a better term, musical wheelhouse?
It's hard to say. I mean, there was just so much to take in watching this movie. And as an editor, do you think it could have been cut down? Maybe
hells yes.
2.5, and not just cutting the music.
No.
But what scenes would you have cut? Or did you think there were any scenes where it was like they just did not need to tell that story at all?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, you could have trimmed down like getting the elephant to the party. You could have trimmed down a lot of the party. You could have trimmed down some of the, just the extra party scenes, mid film. And I get you're still trying to show that the party, the party continues even after the film is being done. You could very easily lose about a half an hour out of this film, especially off of the end. The end just drags. I don't think we needed a montage of all these scenes from other movies. We get, you love Hollywood, it's all good, but I don't think like having a clip of Tron in this montage at the end is not going to tell me more about our love of the Hollywood process.
Okay, I disagree with that. I kind of loved that because this entire movie shows the progression of filmmaking from silent film to when they flipped to color, when they added dialogue. So to show actual, and they showed like Terminator and, as you mentioned, Tron, to show clips of other movies that, I mean, let's be honest, right? Movie making has evolved and grown. And I think it was almost a nice tip of the hat.
See, but the question is though, like with that montage and showing the evolution of filmmaking, and I don't hate that idea if you're telling me that the entire story about Babylon is how the advent of of sound into film, the advent of technology into filmmaking created and ruined people's careers. If that's the overall overarching story, then yes, that montage works. But if the overarching purpose of the film is to be a love letter to the silent movie era, then maybe you change your montage shots to collection of some of the actors that you were pulling from stories, like Clark Gable, like Douglas Fairbanks, like all these actors that you are basically kind of tipping your hat and taking parts of their life, like Emma Bowe, like some of these actors, put them into, and the montage was so fast I couldn't even tell some of the actors that were in there. But yeah, you could trim that down for sure.
I loved the use of Singing in the Rain, like the classic Gene Kelly.
But that also goes back to that scene that Jack didn't want to do in the film, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Like it's almost like thus proving in Hollywood that nothing is original.
No.
It all is a tip of the hat to something that someone else created.
All right. I feel like we've had enough people to talk about in this film. So you're going to have a lot of people to choose from. Gary, who is your MVP of Babylon?
It's no question. It's Margot Robbie.
Okay.
100%. I think she absolutely, she was fantastic. She absolutely did an amazing job in this performance.
See, I have some honorable mentions that I need to point out. And the first one is Justin Hurwitz. This is the composer of the film score. You can't talk about this film without talking about the music, because the music really did set the tone for a lot of this movie, as you would expect out of a Damien Chazelle film. And I also need to give a shout out to Lee Jun-Lee, who played Lady Faye. She's not my MVP, though. And I say that because she's not in it enough to be my MVP. But no, I'm actually going the other way. I'm going with Brad Pitt for my MVP. he impressed me so much with the depth of this character that he created. There were moments in this movie where it's just pure silent facial acting and really some of the best acting chops that he's shown throughout his entire career, and a long storied career at that.
And let's be honest, if he can deliver a performance after being stumble drunk, then kudos to him.
Right?
That's acting.
Yeah. No, Brad Pitt is my MVP, but Justin Hurwitz and Lee Jun Lee do get shout-outs because they did so well at what they brought to this film. Carrie, thank you so much for this. And to you, our dear listeners, luckily, we didn't keep you around for 3 hours, but until next time, you know the drill. If there's a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned or is just so bad that there's no way in the 1920s that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at NotThatBadcast or go to our website at NotThatBadcast.com and be prepared because October is coming around again, which means Mocktober, the sequel, is here. You don't want to miss that. Until next time, she's Carrie, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.